God bless you. It's great once more to sit with you. I'm grateful that you allowed me to speak to you today amongst all the other days. Why? Well, we're not living tomorrow, are we? We're not living or we're not existing 2 weeks or 2 months in the future. We are here today. And so it's a great pleasure, again, for me to sit with you, for me to talk with you, to encourage you, and to show you through the scriptures really where it is and what it is that we are involved in, what we're doing. Ecclesiastes, very unique book. Every book within the Bible, every book is unique in and of itself. There's no two books alike. We have looked at the Song of Solomon. It is said it is the very same man that, that was moved by God, let us say, to pen these words for us to read in the book of Ecclesiastes. Same individual, uh, you know, and it is unique even within its own sphere, even within its own sphere. It's speaking to us about life. It's talking to you about your life, not me. I don't know who I'm talking to. The book speaks to you. It's speaking to me. And I would even want to reinforce it. Probably speaking to me more than it's speaking to you. But only you can say that if you really read it or have read it for yourself. Chapter 1 is an eye opener, and it has caused me even to rethink my own life and the things, the activities that I am doing and in which I have done. Just to glance today as I'm living, what's happening there and how it really is also affecting what I'm doing, which will affect or is affecting my life. The decisions that we make does not always have an effect in the immediate moment of time. No, some of the things that we do, some of the decisions that we make, some of the choices that we make, it takes many days, months, probably even years to really see the effects of, of, of how or of what we do and the condition or the state of our lives, of our marriages, of our families. And I would even go forth to say of our eternal existence. Are we making the right choices? Are we indulging in the right thing? Because what we may think will help us to have that within the glory, you know, doing it, if that makes sense. If we want to be uh, eternally with the Lord, then we need to change our activity. We do need to do it. If we don't want to be with the Lord, then we need to also change or continue doing what we need to do or what we have to do to be eternally separate from God. Anyway, don't want to go too much in that direction. The word of God here is to encourage us to indulge in the things of righteousness, godliness, to concentrate our mind and our thoughts on God, on the Messiah, on the Lord Jesus Christ, especially in this time, in this day and age. We do need to, yes, we do need to focus on the Lord. In chapter 2, the over the main thought of chapter 2, as I did start in the session before now, more or less highlights that nothing on earth lasts. Everything under the sun fails. Everything under the sun fails, and it will fail. I don't care what it is that you, me, or anybody has indulged themselves in. Nothing lasts. Chapter 1 started the ball rolling. You need to read chapter 1 again if you haven't read chapter 1, or if you haven't been with us over a period of time. But chapter 2, again, it reinforces and it goes even further into what will fail. Pleasure will fail. Another area that we'll look into is that earthly pursuits will fail. We'll also go further into chapter 2 that wisdom and the indulgences will fail. Hard work and wealth fail. Nothing lasts. And it is here, it is the wise man Solomon. It is the wisest man, wisest of all men. Now, I know we've got some very wise individuals. We've had wise individuals even after Solomon, and even in our day and time. And as long as the earth and lasts, I believe that there will be wise. I don't know wise individuals. I know some people are very touchy by saying men. Believe only men will be. But wise men and women who are around. They are around. And I'm not sure if I'm not going to say that, or would it be safe to say that there has not been any as wise as Solomon? Probably it could be said. I don't know. The Bible tells us that he asked for wisdom. Why did he ask for wisdom? He asked principally for wisdom because he was now being placed as king over God's people. And he saw the urgency of leading, of governing God's people, and to be truthful in the way that he wanted it, that he saw that he needed to be. Yes. And because of the purity of his heart and of his mind towards God, God granted him not only wisdom, but he also gave him understanding and knowledge. And he just didn't sit down on that. He worked towards it. He worked towards it. He put his mind and his heart, his whole effort into doing, or into perfecting, I would say, or utilizing what God had given him. And in chapters 1, and we're going to see in chapters 2, that everything that God had placed in this world or in this life for man, for mankind, for men and women, for his creation, to some extent, would fail. And it came at a huge cost to him, because we all know that he failed. He in his life, probably in his kingship, how we ought to have lived. He didn't live that life that he started out living. You know, he didn't. 700 wives, 300 concubines. You know, that was totally against God's principles. That was totally against God's wishes. And he indulged in other areas also. So he learned the hard way. He's written these words now. These words have been penned so that we, you, me, our children, the generation that is before us, don't make the mistakes. And even though humanity today They're making grave mistakes. And if Solomon was alive today, then probably he would cry. He would be crying. And he would his words of wisdom probably would not be adhered to, or probably people would make fun of him because they would say, well, you did the same thing. So why can't we do it? Why can't we partakers of whatever of the things that you also partook in? And it is also known not only by biblical scholars but the world over that Solomon was filthy rich, as they would say. He was the wealthiest of all men, even in his day. And probably, if we could quantify in monetary terms the wealth that he had, probably he had more than Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or some of the or other wealthy individuals of our day. Probably he was more wealthy than them. So he was wealthy. He was wealthy, and that's what some of us we are gearing towards. We want that's what we also want to be. There's nothing wrong with being wealthy. There's nothing wrong at all. I wish the Lord would breathe on me, and that I would be able to do what I can do for myself, my children, for my wife, and for the rest of my other members of my family. But that has not come. But even within the scriptures here, the scriptures are telling us that all of these things will fail, are going to fail us if we put our trust, put our strength, and put everything that we have in the things of this life. Everything on earth will not last. Nothing lasts. Under the sun, when the scriptures talks about everything under the sun, it talks about everything on earth. Nothing lasts. Everything fails. And that is why the scriptures again tell us that we ought not to put our treasures on the earth where moth and rust and dust accumulates on it, but we should place our things in the heavens, in God, because that's where everything lasts. Our eternal existence will last um, in the very presence of the Lord. So, for this particular session, we're looking at pleasure. Pleasure fails. Solomon, the wise man, is telling us, the teacher, the preacher, he's saying to us that pleasure fails. Let's read verses 1 to 3 of chapter 2 of Ecclesiastes. And I'm going to read from the Jewish text, and then we'll very quickly, want to take much of your time or your day, we will just share a little on this particular passage. Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verses 1, 2, and 3. I said to myself, come now, I will test myself with pleasure and enjoying good things. But this too was pointless. Of laughter, I said, this is stupid, and of pleasure, what's the use of it? I searched my mind for how to gratify my body with wine, and with my mind still guiding me with wisdom, how to pursue foolishness. My object was to find out what was the best thing for people to do during the short time they have under heaven to live. He gives the reason of uh, of all that he was searching for. What does he say? The object, uh, the the object was to find out what was the best thing for people to do during the short time they have under heaven to live. Let me read that very same passage from the King James Version, because I know that's what many of you have. Again, that's what I have in as much as all the other translations, because that's my favorite translation, really. I love the King James Version. And there may be other versions that you love, but that's fine. I said in mine heart, go to now, I will prove thee with mirth, therefore enjoy pleasure, and behold, this also is vanity. I said of laughter, it is mad. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of mirth, what doeth it? Verse 3. I sought mine heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting mine heart with wisdom, and to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was that good for the sons of men, which they should do under the heaven all the days of, of their life. So here, Solomon, at this time, Solomon was king. He was also an author. He was a songwriter. He was a lecturer, a politician, a military strategist. He was also an economist, botanist, zoologist, and biologist. The realm of academics is divided in both into art and sciences, and many of you know that. We know that. Yes, the realm of academics is divided into the arts and sciences. And Solomon was master of both. He was a brilliant man. Absolutely. Just I don't know if there's any man that is like that in both realms of academia, science as well as the arts. Even so, the greatest study of his intellectual career was the study and pursuit of what could bring total satisfaction to the human heart. What is the secret of true joy? What is the secret of true joy and the total permanent satisfaction in life? It is the same quest that obsesses people throughout the world today. Let me say that statement again. What is the secret of true joy and the total permanent satisfaction in life? That's the same question that Solomon was trying to answer and find out for himself. Yeah, and it is the same quest that obsesses people throughout the world today. Solomon had expected the hunt to begin and end with wisdom. God offered him whatever he wanted, and the newly crowned king requested wisdom. We know, as I said before, he requested wisdom because he wanted to rule his people, the people of God, wisely. He saw the awesome task that was placed before him. And obviously, being the king's son, King David's son, he probably saw the weight of responsibility that was on his father's shoulders. He probably saw the time when his father was asking questions and nobody around him could answer. Solomon himself may have seen the task himself that, if he was king, what would he do? Never mind his father, trying to navigate the quest of, of kingship as he ruled Israel for 40 years. And now it was Solomon's turn. And so he needed the wisdom of God. He needed God. And he turned to the Lord for that. When the knowledge of everything under the sun left the hole in Solomon's heart unfulfilled, he quickly resumed his search. William MacDonald defines pleasure here as the enjoyable sensations that come from the gratification of personal desires. The word which the Hebrew uh, uses for the word pleasure is often translated as gladness or joy. It must be understood, however, that pleasure is an emotional, sensual joy that is too often the product of satisfying the old sinful nature apart from God. It is not the joy of the soul that is the product of a person's relationship with God. So, looking at this a little bit more closely. Verse 1. Solomon discovered that pleasure proved meaningless. Yes, remember, this pleasure that Solomon was addressing here was was uh, was that was satisfying the sinful, the old man, the Adamic nature, the old sinful nature that was separate and apart from God. So Solomon discovered that that pleasure is meaningless. There was no value at all with that. And that is why the world right now is tearing itself apart. Even though they think that it's wonderful to be satisfied by that pleasure, they are satisfying themselves, but it doesn't last. It's meaningless. The sensations of pleasure did not wholly satisfy, it did not last, it did not endure. Solomon found that laughter and pleasure could fill a person's heart, but only temporarily. When a person is in the midst of an enjoyable experience, it is satisfying. When you are in the midst of a situation, of a circumstance, wherever that may be, and you are joyful, or you can laugh, because you are happy, it doesn't last. Or put it this way, it is satisfying. You are happy to be in that moment when if you should watch a play, you go to a theater, you go to a concert, you're amongst friends, family, you're laughing, you are enjoying that moment. But that's only for a moment. Unfortunately, that thrill will drain away as quickly as it arose. It drains away, goes away. After a couple of minutes, an hour later, when you're by yourself, you remember it, but that thrill, that pleasure that we had, that you had, it's there no more. You wish it could continue. Have you been with friends, with family? Have you been in a situation or in a place, wherever that is, on holiday? Think of a pleasurable um, atmosphere, and you wish it would just last and last. It would never come to an end, but it does. And as it falls away, sometimes it's very difficult to remember what it is that you were happy about. You may remember it, but it's not there anymore, and you wish you could go back into that situation. It doesn't last. Nothing lasts. It proves that nothing lasts. A person must continue to seek out more sources of enjoyment, because pleasure cannot repair the hole that is within the human heart. That need, that desire for something to fill, it fills it for a few moments, but it drains away. It doesn't last. It can only patch it temporarily. Solomon experienced temporary satisfaction from all kinds of pleasure, but quickly found that that pleasure was not something that could give genuine, lasting fulfillment of life. You have to be so careful, my friend. Yes, in a church atmosphere, we are happy. Yes, in a church service, we can be rejoicing. And a lot of people come in amongst us and rejoice. A lot of people are happy when they're amongst the people of God. But when they leave, go through the doors or leave that atmosphere, it's gone. It drains away. And that is why we wonder why so many whom we have just been in service with, whom we have just gone to a gospel concert with, whom we went on a holiday with, or whatever it is. They're happy in our presence because things are happening. It fills a void in their lives. It fills a void. But after that, sometimes catastrophic things happen, and you wonder How could that person have done that? How could that person have done this? What happened? It was only temporary. Pleasure is only temporary. Pleasure fails. Oh my God. Pleasure fails. Solomon turned to pleasure. Solomon went in search of entertainment. The teacher, the teacher here, the preacher who is preaching and teaching us through the scriptures in Ecclesiastes here, soon learned the hard lesson about pleasure. When Solomon said it was foolish, he used a word that is quite surprising. The word is halal. Its meaning is determined by whatever it describes. When used with something that is worthless, as it is here with pleasure, it means to boast foolishly or to make a show off. I said of laughter, it is mad, of a mirth, what doeth it? I sought in mine heart to give myself unto wine. Of laughter, I said, this is stupid, and of pleasure, what's the use of it? Solomon discovered the truth about pleasure. He discovered the truth about entertainment. The fleshly fulfillment ends and its enjoyment quickly wears off and it leaves behind only the desire for more. And that's what people go after. That's why people, young men, young women, middle aged men and women, old men and women, even our children, the generation that is coming, they run from one thrill to the next. One weekend, they can't wait for the weekend to take place. The Monday to Thursdays, Fridays, it's dreary. But weekend, they run to fulfill a hole, a space in their life. And when Monday comes, some of them can't get up because of what they've taken to make them happy, because it has worn off. And that, my friend, Solomon is talking about. It's not about the fulfillment of the flesh, but it is of the soul here that Solomon is really trying to bring across to the reader. Yes. What does pleasure accomplish? And the answer to that question is nothing of permanent value. What does pleasure accomplish? And in one word, nothing. it's it's quite revealing, isn't it? Nothing of value. Nothing of value. Solomon experimented in indulging in wine. Verse 3 says, I searched my mind for how to gratify my body with wine, and with my mind still guiding me with wisdom, how to pursue foolishness. Have we really looked at the scriptures the way that we should? Are we living the life that we should according to the scriptures? Solomon experimented with wine. Solomon hoped wine would make him feel better. He was hoping that wine would cheer him up. He was hoping that wine would help him to forget his problems. And aren't these some of the things that that unsaved, the sinner sometimes expresses? Your friend who doesn't know God, even those who express that they know God, some of them they experiment with wine, with drugs, with all sorts of things, hoping that they would forget their problems, that it would cheer them up, that it would make them feel better. Solomon hoped that wine would be able to drown his sorrows. He sought to enhance pleasure with a substance. The substances of this world, my friends, cannot Well, it may enhance pleasure, but only for a while. Then when that is gone, when that thrill is gone, what happens? While he was embracing wine and indulging in fleshly pleasure, he was being guided by his wisdom. The wisest of all men, however, was deceiving himself. He was too self confident. He was far too self confident. And that is the problem with a lot of us. And I'm not even talking about, we have to look at all of us, both those who are saved as well as those who are not saved. Because even those who are saved, they may have, yes, I can't judge anyone. I can't say that you don't have a relationship with God. But that can always have a question mark over that because we're so self-confident. We balance ourselves on the fence, not knowing that as we sit on the fence, there's splinters going up into our bottom. We try so much to say that we are so self-confident and nothing will go wrong. Nothing is happening to us. Nothing. And that's the same thing that Solomon was doing here. He was indulging in things, even though yes, he was the wisest woman. He could also say that he was a man of God. He was a son of God, a son of David, a son of Abraham. All of these things, I'm sure. Probably, I'm not gonna say, don't have proof of it, but let's talk for a while. Yeah, let's just interject a few things there. He was a son of David. He was he was from the tribe of Judah, who Judah was also a son of Jacob, who was the grandson, wasn't he not, of Abraham? And that's what some of us are saying, even of our own relationship. We know God. We have a relationship with God. But yet we are using things to enhance our lives, thinking that by enhancing our lives, by doing the thing that brings us pleasure, whatever it is, whatever pleasure that we find ourselves doing, it really fails. It does not bring us to Christ. It doesn't. Anything that we are indulging ourselves, it doesn't bring us any closer at all to God. It doesn't. All God wants is that we bring up ourselves, is that we have a real relationship. Forget the money that one has. Forget the status that you have in life. Forget the wealth. Forget the possession. Forget, you know, the 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 education that one may have, the degree that you have. That doesn't bring any of us any more closer to God than the one who has nothing. In actual fact, it does bring sorrow in a sense because we should be better. We should be able to help those who have nothing, even teaching them and helping them to have a relationship. But you see, what we do, and it seems that what happens amongst us is that it separates us and we place ourselves in a greater strata in life then, and we look down on others who don't have what we have, and that brings a separation. And they feel, well, they feel that we are closer to the Lord because we are educated, whereas they feel themselves below the standards of what God is really asking for. That should never be. That should never be. Solomon was so confident in his power to resist temptation that he did not consider the possibility that his flesh might overpower his mind and will. He felt justified in his action because he had a purpose for indulging in what was displeasing and disobedient to God. He wanted to see what was good or worthwhile for people to do. Tragically, millions have fallen into the trap of alcohol, substance abuse because, like Solomon, They wanted to see if wine could enhance the pleasure of their lives. A person's days on earth are few. Let's remember that. I'm here for 60 plus years, but my days are few. I've got to have that in my mind because any time now I could disappear and people will forget the scriptures tell us. In chapter 1, it tells us that 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 our existence is forgotten. The things that we do now, it will be forgotten. Just as the things that were done hundreds of years ago, nobody remembers that. We don't sit here talking about what John Newton was talking about. We don't. You'll never sit amongst a company of individuals and they're talking about what um, you know Columbus did or his or what he um, discovered. Not unless it's on the particular circumstances. Would you bring that up? People will forget as long if this earth tarries. Once Graham has expired, Graham is known now. You hear me now. But if Graham is expired, hundreds of if this world lasts for another 50 or 100 years, when Graham is expired, nobody's going to remember what Graham has done. Never mind what he has said. But somebody else is going to come along and say the very same things probably that I've said today. But nobody's ever going to put the two together and say, well, I remember, you know, so many years ago, Graham said the same thing. Nobody's going to remember that. Our days on earth are few. Solomon discovered that wine did not hold the key to satisfaction. It only numbed the pain, enabling him to forget his problems for a brief moment. What we do for God, that is what we love. Pleasure fails. And we have already touched on a few things in chapter 1 that we looked at. All things fail. Human achievements fail. Our wisdom fail. You know, and you read chapter 1, these things fail. And we're going to be touching on a few things even in chapter 2. And I dare say when we get to chapter 3, we're going to see a few more things. But all of these things fail. Pleasure will fail. Let's not just live from one weekend to the week, one weekend to the next. Let's not just live from one day to the next, trying to find pleasure. But let us find ourselves in God. Let our souls hunger and thirst after righteousness. For God says, they shall be filled. Our thirst will be quenched. There's a thirst in man that men tries to fill with education, with wealth, with all sorts of earthly things. But that will never, our thirst, our hunger will never go. It will never be filled. Only what we do for God, what we do for Christ will last. May God bless you. Continue reading and meditating, I believe, on Ecclesiastes. We don't look too closely at this particular book. Probably you do. I don't know. Probably at your church, which is good. Maybe a very good church, local church, where your pastor reads, comments, preaches from this particular book. So, I'm not talking to you if he does. And even if you do turn to those scriptures within the book of Ecclesiastes, I want to encourage you to continue to do, because there are some valuable nuggets, valuable, priceless words of wisdom here that we ought to really remind ourselves, our families, our children, this generation that is coming up in our midst, that is growing up in our churches, in our cell groups, in our house groups, whatever, wherever you go, we need to rehearse, read, reread, and rehearse these words of wisdom that Solomon has left for us. Yes, it is God's word. Yes, He is. God is trying to reach out to us. God is trying very much so to reach out to us, to appeal to us, reach out to His creation. Remember, we are the very pinnacle of creation. There is nothing on the earth or under the sun that is as high as us in relation to the creative order. Nothing. And so God is trying to get to us, appeal to us, to look at ourselves. He wants to remind us that the pleasures that we should have, our eyes, our mind should be toward Him. Our attention should be toward Him, not on the things that is around us. No, not at the earthly things that will fail, that will rust, that will fall apart. But our minds should be on the things of heaven. May God bless you, love you, continue to pray for us, and we trust and we hope that we will see each other in the coming session that we'll have on chapter 2 of Ecclesiastes.